Welcome back. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next part, which is the invalidators of the prayer. So we've done the integral necessary acts, sunnahs. The disliked actions we'll do in the next lesson because I want to follow the order of the book. So let's have a look. Following things invalidate the ritual prayer. So just a quick note here. So any of the invalidators, they invalidate the prayer. The prayer needs to be made up. So if you're doing an obligatory prayer or a wajib prayer, that prayer needs to be made up. What about a supererogatory prayer, like the sunnahs or voluntary prayers, nawafila? Those prayers, you've basically obliged the prayer upon yourself. As a point of obliging it upon yourself, you pray that prayer again. Things that invalidate the prayer, it's a basic disregard for the prayer. It's a disregard for the obligations of the prayer and the actions of what you're doing and what you're supposed to do. And anything that shows a disrespect to the prayer is disliked. So this lesson, we're going to look at things that have severe repercussions in the sense that they break the prayer. Because we mentioned before, is when you say Allahu Akbar and you enter the prayer, everything that was halal for you, that was allowed for you outside of the prayer, now becomes haram for you while you're in the prayer. The minute you say Allahu Akbar, you're entering a different world. Now you're entering a world where you've left your world away and you've entered the presence of your Lord, right? And you're intimately conversing with your Lord. And in such instance, it's befitting for you and it behooves you to behave in the appropriate way. So anything that you do that contravenes that, shows a lack of proper presence in the prayer, will break your prayer. So our author says to utter a word of human speech as opposed to words of prayer, even if by accident, 2 letters or 1 letter with meaning. So to utter a word, to utter 2 letters, right, that are not part of the prayer. Obviously, when you're in prayer, you're uttering, you're reciting. But here, to utter words that belong outside of the prayer, if you utter them inside of the prayer, they break your prayer. Or 1 letter with meaning. Now, in the English language, the only thing I can think of is probably the word I. But in Arabic, certainly words like fi, ki, li, they hold meaning, right? So in that instance, uttering those words would break your prayer. Number 2, too much movement, which is such that if an outsider were to see the person, he would consider him to not be in the ritual prayer. Movement less than that is excused. Now, there's no ballpoint, this is what constitutes too much movement. It's left to everybody's discretion. There's no clear boundary between what's a lot and what's a little. What may be a little for you could be a lot for somebody else. The general criterion is that were somebody to observe you praying, would they think, if somebody were to observe you from a distance, would they think you're praying, or would they think, no, this guy's doing something else? Right? So if I'm busy fixing my turban and again my both hands are wired up here, or I've got a scarf that I keep wrapping around myself, or for a female the hijab keeps coming loose and she's forever tying up her hijab, somebody observing from a distance, what would they think? They would probably think that person's busy tying their scarf, or that person's busy fixing his imama for the purpose of presentation. So in an instance like that, your prayer would have been broken. And another opinion, that 3 continuous movements. So if during the prayer I were to scratch my face like this for 5 seconds and then pray for a while and then scratch again for 5 seconds and then pray and then again scratch for 5 seconds, that constitutes a broken prayer. Or some scholars even say in one specific action of prayer. So for example, if I were to like the qiyam, the standing for prayer, 3 actions in that, or if I were to bow, 3 actions in that, or if I were to go into prostrations, 3 actions in that, or if I were to sit, 3 actions in that. But the strongest opinion is that were another person to see you, would they think you're praying or not? If they were to think you weren't praying because of your excessive movements, then that means that your prayer is broken. Because if somebody were to set their hat, let's just say they were to set their hat, it's a very discreet motion, right? So you're praying and you set your hat and then you carry on praying. So if somebody were to look at you from a distance, straight away they'd know, okay, the guy's praying, he's fixing his hat and he's carrying on praying. Or if something's come loose of his clothing and he quickly tightens it up again and then he carries on praying. So the idea is the other person looking at you and thinking, is the person praying or not? Number 3, to eat even if a little, if food is taken from outside the mouth. Any amount breaks the prayer. If there is leftover food in the mouth, then the amount equivalent to the size of a chickpea breaks the prayer, while less than that is excused. So any food that I take, I'm in the prayer, and any food I take in from outside of the mouth will render my prayer null and void. So whether I grab something and put it in my mouth, or whether there's a crumb outside my mouth and I lick it and put it in my mouth, it will break my prayer. Any food in the mouth, because sometimes it's not easy to remove everything before prayer. So any food that I have in the mouth up to a chickpea's worth, a dry chickpea's worth of food, up to that, and your prayer would break. So anything less than that is excused. Now this would normally happen during Ramadan. During Ramadan, especially where Maghrib prayer is straight after you've eaten, so you try to eat and then you quickly stand. Sometimes you get a chance to wash your mouth, sometimes you won't. And no doubt you'll have bits of food left in your mouth, and then you begin to pray. And as you begin to pray, certain particles of food come loose. In that instance, if it's less than a chickpea, and then it's excused. The exception is with like sugar cubes, things that melt, sugar cubes, chocolate, like a gooey toffee, or those boiled sweets or something like that. If you had like chocolate in your mouth, stuck in your teeth, and it carries on melting until it disappears, obviously that has melted down into you now, and your prayer would have been broken. Flavor of food and drinks is overlooked. So especially like if you've had in Ramadan, ruh afza is what the Pakistanis have, and it will leave a flavor in your mouth. And if you were to take a sip and everything goes down, you've still got the flavor in your mouth, and you begin to pray, we don't take that into consideration. For the Egyptians, it would be karkadeh, matte for the Syrians, shanina and tamar hind for the Palestinians and Jordanians. So all of these drinks that you have that leave a pleasant taste in your mouth straight after you've drunk them, if you went to pray, it wouldn't break your prayer. Number 4, to drink. Okay, so obviously to drink during the prayer would break your prayer, and it's one thing that needs to be taken care of here is wudu water. Sometimes people rush their wudu because they want to catch the congregation and they don't dry themselves, and the water carries on dripping down their nose, down their mustache and into their mouth, and if they were to take that water into their mouth, then their wudu would break because that water went in from outside. Rainwater is not so much of a problem. It's a very rare case, but especially wudu water is something that happens quite a lot. Number 5, to clear one's throat without an excuse such that letters of the alphabet are uttered. Now, clearing your throat, if you've got a genuine need, again, there's not a problem with that. If you've got a ticklish feeling, or you've got a cough coming on, or you've got phlegm there, whether it's the imam who's doing that to clear his throat to recite, or whether it's you that's being bugged by it, there's not a problem with that. But habitually coughing, people who have the habit of clearing their throat, or just for no reason whatsoever you decide to clear your throat. The problem with clearing your throat is that sometimes it's like a sound, right? It's a sound that comes out. Any sound that comes out will break your prayer. However, for women, they would do that if they want to draw attention to the imam. To cry out loud unless if due to the prayer itself. So crying in the prayer, there's not a problem with crying in the prayer if you hear words that touch you deeply and you should start to shed tears down your eyes. That's not a problem. Sometimes you become overwhelmed to the extent that you'll actually start to sob. Again, that's not a problem. But if it's something to do with outside of the prayer and you've brought it into the prayer, then that's a problem. That would make your prayer null and void. We're talking about things like somebody who's just lost his job, or the cat's died, or the hamsters run away, or something like that. If you bring that into your prayer and you cry, you break your prayer. Moaning, if avoidable, will break fast. If not avoidable, will not break. So if you moan, some people have the habit, each time they bend down, when they get up, they have a habit, oof, or something like this. By habit, you've uttered a sound, your prayer would break. And if it was not avoidable, like some people have genuine pain, right? And no matter what they do, they can't resist some sort of a scream or a sound or a squeak coming out of them. or if you've just gone into a spasm, or if you suffer from back pain, you go into prostration, and sometimes you spasm and you can't stop yourself, you make a sound, that's excusable. But moaning for no reason, just by habit, will break your prayer. To say salam to someone with the intention of greeting them, to say the salam, or even to shake their hands during prayer would make your prayer null and void. To respond to someone's greeting by saying La ilaha illallah or the like, decides to call you, that would also break your prayer. To turn one's torso away from the direction of the Qibla. Okay, so to merely look left or look right would not break my prayer. To turn my torso away from the Qibla, so if the Qibla is this way and I've turned my torso this way like this, then that would break my prayer. A slight turn of the torso is not a problem, but if I were to turn at a 45-degree angle away from the Qibla, that would break my prayer. However, sometimes you're in situations, that's if it's deliberate, but you're in situations where you're cramped and somebody wants to get through a saf to get to the other saf, and they normally push people away, unfortunately. In that instance, you may end up doing this. In that instance, once it's passed, you just quickly turn away, turn back towards the Qibla, and there's not a problem. To supplicate using words that resemble normal human speech. As mentioned before, to utter any words that you could ask somebody who's alive would break your prayer. So if I say, during sujood, if I say, oh Allah, give me a car. Oh Allah, my phone's broken. Fix my phone. Something like this that I can ask a normal human being for. I can ask my father for a car. I can ask my brother to fix my phone. Would break my prayer. The only du'as that you're allowed to ask for are otherworldly du'as, such as, oh Allah, give me paradise. Oh Allah, seek refuge in you from the fire of hell. Oh Allah, strengthen me upon the deen. But if you make a general du'a, oh Allah, give me khair fi dunya wal akhirah, and fi dunya, by that you mean give me wealth, give me a job. That's your intention, but you've asked the genuine du'a using words that are from the sunnah. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Things like that are okay. To elongate the hamza letter in the takbir. So for example, to say Allahu Akbar, right? Allah, like that, to elongate the hamza is like Allah, right? So to elongate the hamza would break the prayer, because it changes the meaning. For one's nakedness to be uncovered for the length of time it takes to recite 3 tasbihat. So if you're praying and you realize that your nakedness has shown, whatever it may be, discreetly, you just quickly cover up again. And some say to the extent of 3 tasbihat. So subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. A relaxed subhanallah, not a rushed one. And you just cover yourself up and carry on praying. However, if it goes beyond that, or you're careless, or you deliberately expose yourself, then you break your prayer. To carry an unexcused amount of filth. Now, we've gone into prayer with not having filth. There's no prayer for the one who starts his prayer with an excessive amount of filth on him. But in this instance, we're talking about if you were to pray and someone threw filth in your direction, or an animal passed and did something. In that instance, if it was the excused amount, it's okay. If it was the unexcused amount, your prayer would break. For the follower to precede the imam by a pillar. Okay, what this refers to is you doing an action that supersedes the action of the imam. So for example, if this is the imam standing on my right side, and this is you. So the imam goes down into ruku, you go down into ruku. The imam comes up, you come up. But if, however, you go down into ruku, if you've gone down before him, if he catches you, that's fine, and then he comes up and then you come up. Or if he goes down, and for some strange reason you don't go down, you misunderstood or something, and then he comes back up again, and then you realize, oh, he's just gone down. Then you go down, even though he's finished now, and then come up again, it's okay. But for you to supersede him, where you've done an action completely and he hasn't done that action, would break your prayer. To miss a pillar of the prayer and not make it up later before the end of the prayer. So here we're talking like if you were to miss a pillar of the prayer, like sujood, instead of doing two, you did 1, and then you'd have to make that up in another cycle by doing 3. So in an instance like this, if you didn't do that, then you would have broken your prayer, and you have to do it again because you've missed a pillar of the prayer. Okay, thank you very much.